And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPCast. I'm joined today by Josh and Erika. Erika, did you have a good Friday? It's good to have you back.
I did. Oh, thanks. I hope you had fun with Mary Margaret. And yes, I heard she was great. I didn't watch because I was with family, and it was a great day off. So thanks for covering for me, Mary Margaret. Shout out. And guys, I'm happy to be back with you, though. I missed you.
She was great, although I have to say I wish that you were here for the Ballerina Farm hit piece.
I missed that. Oh,
Josh doesn't scream, "I love Ballerina Farm," but that was a fun one to talk about.
The sourdough starter.
Not a sourdough guy.
Yeah, like the opposite of childless cat ladies, right? That's Ballerina Farm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. People are still giving her a hard time. I'm like, she's going to be just fine, guys. Like, so stupid. But hey, thank you to everyone joining in the chat today. We did just pass 10,000 subscribers on the YouTube.
Yes.
Nice.
That's a nice milestone.
Yeah.
Thank you to all 10,000 of you guys hanging out.
That sounds like a pizza lunch for us. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yes.
We get to throw a pizza party. It'll be very chill. What's up to everyone already in the chat? Tony, K-Bear. What's up, gang? Jan, Ariel. If you want to come hang out with us live, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 a.m. It's the most fun way to do the show. But thank you to everyone also on the podcast platform. I don't want to forget about you guys. Thank you for listening after the fact. Just seeing milestones like that make me so grateful for this community. And hopefully we keep you guys entertained and a little bit more in the know. So, do we have to talk about this? The Olympic ceremony. What the heck, guys?
Oh, my gosh.
France. Like, all you do is surrender and eat croissants and now just put on the most bizarre, blasphemous events of all time. I don't understand what was going through people's minds for that one.
Oh my gosh. Well, they say that they wanted to have a celebration of inclusivity and tolerance in this like brave new world that France thinks it lives in. And what they came up with was a blasphemous mockery of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper, which people have pointed out is not even, because they're like, okay, France is like art, so we're going to have all these references to great works of art. The Last Supper is actually not even in France. It's in Milan, Italy. So this was a stretch, and it was totally, I loved the backpedaling, like, oh, it wasn't actually The Last Supper. I didn't have that in mind. And finally, the organizer.
It's like, no one believes you.
No one believes
You're lying.
Yeah. It was definitely jarring. I got back. We had Friday with the family at the pool, and I got back that night, and I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to. My first clue was going to be bad was when the Olympic torch was carried into Paris by a small white male and a very large transvestite holding this like phallic like torch up above their heads as they pranced down the streets. I was like, I bet the opening ceremony is going to be just as bad.
Yeah.
That's a definite stay away vibe.
Yeah, it was a stay away vibe, and turns out I was right. So good that the kids and I didn't sit down to watch that. But
I'm so glad that the Olympics committee took the time to really prop up the most marginalized group in the world right now, men dressing up as women in beards. Like, they just happen to be the most supported, celebrated, apologized for community of all time. Like, so brave. Stunning and brave, guys. Like, you really picked out some really some winners. But yeah, I mean, just bizarre. The whole thing was so bizarre. And I think what's worth pointing out here is, and there's plenty of backlash. So you get Bishop Barron, he puts out a video with 3.6 million views. Bishops from all over the world talking about it. The apology, someone already pointed out in the chat, was very weak.
Oh my gosh.
Non-apology.
The apology was clearly, there was never an intention to show disrespect to any religious group. On the contrary, I think with Thomas Jolly, we did try to celebrate community tolerance. This came from the spokesperson and Deschamps. Looking at the results of the polls we shared, we believe that this ambition was achieved. If people have taken any offense, we are, of course, really, really sorry. Now, that's my favorite. My favorite media apology is when people say, we're sorry if anyone took any offense, because they're not sorry about what they did. They're sorry that people reacted the way that they did to what they did.
Right. See, the problem is the reaction. Isn't that cute?
Right. Yeah, no, you're the problem. Yeah. And just a jarring, kind of disgusting. It's funny people were bringing up old Olympic ceremonies, and a lot of them, to be honest, have been pretty bizarre, but not
goofy,
as bizarre as this one was pretty off. But I'd have to say with the whole thing, maybe we can get a little bit more into the reaction, because they were saying, oh, well, it was Dionysus, whatever. I think it distracts from a largely positive event. Like, I think of the Olympics as something that even little kids look up to, and you get to see people pour their blood, sweat, and tears for national pride. These aren't people often making millions of dollars. They're often competing in very niche sports that don't bring in a lot of money, and they want to be there because they want to represent their country. And Erika, you were talking about this too. It's a really healthy way to resolve conflicts from countries that largely, the governments are basically at war. Like you see people from Taiwan competing with people from China. You see Russians competing with people from Ukraine. And the athletes themselves aren't a part of the government decisions. That's why I always really hesitate when it's like,
unless of course it's like a Jewish athlete that got killed beforehand by Palestinians in Gaza, so they can't go. There's that. But
yeah, there's always been, and of course that's disgusting and sad. But there's always been international tensions during Olympics. Like you go back many, many years. And so I think, unfortunately, what France did really distracted from what could have been such a positive, unifying event for everyone. So that's why I maybe hesitate before people say, well, boycott everything. I'm like, well, there's plenty of, kids from Indiana that are going to be swimming for Olympic gold for America and are probably going to glorify God while doing it. So I think I'm probably still going to watch personally, but just really disappointing from France to take that time to throw a middle finger at Christian. I guarantee they wouldn't do it to Muslims, by the way, because they basically
Charlie
take over
Hebdo
the country.
Remember that?
Wait, remember what?
Charlie Hebdo, the satire magazine in France that made fun of Muslims, and then the Muslims bombed the editorial building and 12 people died. So, yeah, people don't make fun of Muslims anymore.
Yeah. Absolutely not. And in fact, this Olympics, I guess, has had the most threats of terrorism of any Olympics ever, including the Olympics in which the 12 Israeli athletes died. So France is definitely under siege, as is most of Western Europe.
It's all those Swedish immigrants that have moved into France.
Yeah, and I mean, so what this French artist Thomas Joly chooses to target isn't the existential threat to his country. It's the church and the Christian symbolism, and it's just sort of like dancing on the graves. And I mean,
in a sense, I appreciate the compliment, though. I mean, like, they know who their enemy is. Let's go.
Yeah. Why can't they just ignore it? Yeah, we live rent free in their heads, I believe someone on staff said. So there's that. But I think too, Tom, I was like, we're still watching some of the Olympic events with our kids, just like clips and stuff like that, because I was really struck. We watched the archery competition last night. Get it? I got Mercer.
No, I was laughing at a comment. Sorry.
Oh, you're laughing at a comment? I made a pun. I was struck by the archery tournament. Anyway, moving on.
That was rude.
The Chinese versus the South Koreans. And I mean, this is a war-torn area of the world. So to see these two teams going up against each other and just striving to dominate in terms of physical prowess and excellence. It's a better way of resolving issues than other ways that we are looking at worldwide right now. So it is healthy in that way.
Josh, if you were to compete in an Olympic event, which one would it be?
I'm pretty fat, so probably shot put or something. Right?
I could see it.
There you go.
I mean, there was a Saturday Night Live Olympics where the guy was running John Belushi, and he's eating the donuts.
Any thoughts on you, Erika?
Oh man, if I were to compete in the Olympics, I think back in the day I would have gone with running, like long distance running. But I do love a good Nordic ski in the Winter Olympics. Love the Nordic skiing. This is true. So awesome.
I wouldn't do anything involving swimming because the Seine River is still disgusting, even though they're still swimming in it. But I'd probably be in breakdancing. They're doing breakdancing these days.
There you go, Pogo. That's so you.
That's so like Olympic
Gen
sport.
Z.
Yeah, breaking. They're calling it breaking. It's breakdancing. We're back, man. The Olympics are gonna be sick. Yeah, I always loved like turning on the TV for 2 weeks and catching like the most random sport imaginable. I saw some of the handball. And it was like Angola versus Spain and women's handball. And I was locked in.
Wait. Like awesome. The winner gets the Gibraltar or how's it go?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it looked fun. And I played it in gym class growing up. So that was pretty sick. But
that's awesome.
Any more talk? I wanted to bring up some positive stories because I thought a lot of stuff was negative. Maybe last point on it. What bothers me about really obvious, I don't even know if we need to show I don't even want to look at it again.
I don't want to show it. No,
but
they can Google it.
Right, you can Google it. But there was pretty, easily provable blasphemy going on there.
Yes,
and
obviously.
I saw that the response, instead of being like, yeah, maybe that's poor taste, France shouldn't have done it, was no, they were actually mocking this other art of like Dionysus or whatever.
Don't believe your lying eyes.
Yeah, you Christians get mad about everything and you're stupid and uncultured because you don't know about this Dionysus painting. Which, of course, I go look up the main person in the Last Supper thing admits herself that I was Jesus.
Yeah.
And so you're like, it instead of, I don't know.
It's almost
so
like they're lying.
No, he said it. He said it. Yeah. And the Olympic spokesperson said it as well. Like it was a French pun on like the supper on the Seine at the something. And it's, so they said it themselves. Like, yeah, this was the Last Supper. And there was really, for people who are like, oh, you're so uncultured, you don't understand, blah blah blah, like, why are you so offended, grow up. I'm like, no, this is the central image of our faith, and it is the last acceptable bigotry that you're watching there on the screen. And I'm with Bishop Barron, like, you've got to speak up. Christians, stop lying down and just taking it and being like, oh, well, we don't want to upset people.
Okay.
We need to be nice.
I agree with you. That's half of it, though, Erica. The other half is, okay, wait, I'm uncultured. If you're saying that this is culture, you're rolling around like pigs in mud. Like, really? Like, no thanks. I don't want to be any part of this.
This is not
like,
culture.
give me a break. I mean, it would be one thing if we were like, if there are a bunch of people like, nude and they're trying to pretend like they're Greek statues and they're like, good-looking people, and it's like, this is the human form, and it was a little bit too provocative, like, yeah, that's a little too much nudity or whatever. Oh, but we're just Greek statues. These people looked ugly. I mean, dude, I wasn't out there, dressed up in like a blue, Smurf
blue
thing.
Paint.
Yeah, I did that in college once, but it's like, I come on.
Yeah.
All right, we need to move on.
Yeah.
Palate cleansers. So we have Brazilian skateboarder. I believe she's 16.
Yeah.
Signing Christ is King, I think, in ASL.
She said, Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. So she was in the middle of the Olympic competition. The camera goes to her. She signed, Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. And she gives a little like cool skateboard sign or something.
Let's do it. Palate cleanser. Bam. There you go.
Palate cleanser. This is what it's about.
Come on now.
Aww.
How do you not love that?
It's awesome. I love that.
And then we get Olympic sprinter, 400 meter, Sydney McLaughlin. I would take my love for Christ and that relationship over a gold medal any day. How great is that?
Yeah, she's pretty awesome.
And we get the GOAT.
She's both pretty and awesome.
Novak Djokovic. Throwing out the cross. Tennis GOAT. Unvaccinated king. Yeah. So I like to throw those in because I grew up watching the Olympics too, and of course being inspired by Michael Phelps and all that good stuff. So I don't think it's on full boycott territory. Just the Olympic Committee is fake and weird. So this I've been waiting to talk about this. All right, we have a fun topic now. So I know that many of you join us on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and so you also must have joined the White Chicks for Harris Zoom campaign. Largely successful when it comes to donations. I mean, I think they made like $200 million, something insane.
So embarrassing.
But I cannot exaggerate how fun. I don't even funny is the word, cringeworthy. It just made me hurt watching some of these clips. So can we get a taste of the white women for Harris campaign?
Popularly known as Karens for Kamala.
Oh man, yeah, you said that.
HR ladies for Karen.
Yeah. Simon, can we pull that one up?
Ugh.
Unbelievable.
Followers is here to help gentle parent us through this election.
Thank you, everybody. I am so honored to speak today. I am like shaking to just be among such incredible company. We are here because, as if you were here earlier, you've heard BIPOC women have tapped us in as white women to step up and get involved this election season. This is a really important time, and we all need to use our voices and influence for the greater good, no matter who you are, You are all influencers in some way.
White people.
I'm going to share some do's and don'ts for getting involved in politics online and navigating the toxicity that comes with it. And spoiler alert, as much as the toxicity can come from the outside, it can come from us too. So first, don't isolate yourself.
Oh, yes.
We can do our best work when we're in community together like we are tonight, because the toxic feels smaller when we support each other. But don't make it about yourself. As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And instead, we can put our listening ears on. So
take a beat.
Do learn from and amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized, and use the privilege you have in order to push for systemic change. As white people, we have a lot to learn and unlearn. So do check your blind spots.
So deep.
You are responsible for your algorithm, believe it or not.
When's my snack and nap time?
Algorithm. Like 3 syllables. Oh my
Someone
gosh.
said in the chat, kindergarten teacher from hell.
So can we get first impressions? How does that session make you guys feel?
I'm sick to my stomach, honestly. I would not even speak to my 7-year-old in these terms. Like, we need to put our listening ears on and check our privilege and use our privilege. Yes.
Now, can I bring up the obvious? If there was a white dudes for Trump Zoom, this would be the next Charlotte rally.
Oh yeah, this would be like there's
Charlottesville. You mean
Charlottesville? Yeah.
Only the left can get away with this level of racist, sexist twaddle. Like, this is absolutely. It's just such an affront to everything, all the things. I'm kind of speechless. Here I am. Inside the white women call for Harris.
Does it scare you that it's working?
Is it?
Well,
is this working?
They raised a lot of money.
Kamala's riding this wave, and I think it's going to crash and burn. I'm hoping.
But I mean, let there be no doubt that the white women Karens of the world have a considerable amount of force in this country. I mean, they run all the HR, fields in every corporate thing in America. Like, they don't create, they manage, and they scold, and they're used to, it's absolutely a terrifying thing. And it's not just women, of course. I mean, it's, again, any attack, like, oh, you're sexist. Like, dude, I mean, if Margaret Thatcher were alive, and like, I would love for her to be the leader of my country. She was one of the best women ever. Like, it's not a sexist thing. It's like, I hate this kind of like school marm Karen smacking, the ruler and being the hall monitor just as much as I hate the wimpy kind of beta male guy who, who's got the long fingernails and he's taking calls in the Biden White House. Like, all of them I can't stand.
Yeah, that guy.
Like, dude, I mean.
JD Vance is weird, though.
Yeah, and they got to pretend that JD Vance is weird, right? I mean, goodness sakes, like the Biden-Harris administration gives us that bald dude wearing a dress with a mustache, a big red lipstick, and he steals suitcases. But we're going to try to pretend that JD Vance, super normal guy, is somehow weird.
JD Vance is weird, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think, again, this is like, this middle manager HR woman type is the absolute horror. And, if corporate America doesn't try to figure out how to make these people to be productive workers, then they're just going to go around and scold everybody and drive the economy down with it.
Well, doesn't it speak to like there's this is such a trope. It makes me think of Mad Men. Like, you have kind of the housewife at home who's kind of bored and kind of zanned out in Mad Men. But now you think of like the modern equivalent of women that are bored and don't feel purpose. Yeah. They need to find purpose being a quote ally to the BIPOC community or politically active, because they've kind of eaten a lot of the lies. So maybe they don't have children, or if they do have children, they're in daycare all day. And so they don't, you know what I mean? Like, women in that situation need to find something to do.
It's just like the white dudes who, are addicted to video games and porn and are unproductive members of society as well. It's like, it's not like, look, there are men and women that need to get back on the right train and get things right again. It's like, all of this stuff is just sort of maddening. So it's not like like that woman is not a cat lady per se. Like that's the one thing I would say. It was a throwaway line that JD Vance said about the cat lady. I think we have to understand is that they're not just single, like they're married women, and they're raising their boys to be like little beta boys. And we gotta. The last thing they want, like they are absolutely repellent to any form of just even gentle masculinity, properly understood. They want to scold, and like. It's just hilarious to me. Like people, like I had someone online. She was on Facebook. She was a college friend of mine, and she's just always she's the total Karen scolder. And she's like, watch how you say things about, Kamala Harris. Your wives and your daughters and your sisters are listening. It's like, again, what is with the
My wives
policing
and
of this
sisters and
stuff?
daughters
It's like
are
I
definitely.
talk worse. I talk worse about Biden because he's a Catholic,
Right.
like than I did Kamala, but she's a communist. Like, okay, sorry, I'm not going to hold back. Like,
Right. And I think one of the sections of the Zoom that is also making the rounds here is where one of the women said, "I feel like we all just went to collective therapy," and they're praising this like this was this whole Zoom session of like, we're going to use our white privilege, we're going to get our hands dirty, we're going to make our neighbors uncomfortable. This is for our kids, and I see a lot of these women as sort of the negative side, the reverse side of the Tiffany Justice Moms for Liberty crowd, right? Like women are extremely powerful, women with children, because they have that mama bear instinct. And the question is, are they going to use it for truth, or are they going to use it, or are they going to be used by the left for this sort of like anti-woman, anti-family, anti-life ethic that we're fighting against with the Harris campaign. And these women, like watching them just sort of simper and say things like, Kamala Harris is glistening in the moonlight for our rights. You're like, what is that? But it is a little terrifying, and I don't think they should be underestimated, but it is
no,
sad.
definitely not. They are a powerful force. My friend actually had something I thought pretty good to share. I thought I'd share it with you guys. He said that J.D. Vance has spoken with deep compassion about single moms, kids in foster care, people of every race, migrants, and even people that affirm a so-called gay lifestyle. Ideologues and career politicians don't have the imagination to do that. All they do is affirm.
Right.
So they use words like single moms rock, you go girl, but they do nothing to address the cultural decay that continually lets abusive men off the hook and leaves women crushed under the almost impossible task of raising children alone. Something that J.D. Vance would, by the way, know about. To the kids society fails to protect from sex abuse, they're like, oh, wow, you're so quirky. Have you tried hormones?
Right.
Or chatting with trans people online? And to blacks and Hispanics that are struggling in an adverse economy, they offer slogans and hashtags, political violence and a presidential administration headed up by an old rich white guy who once expressed how surprised at how clean and articulate the first black president was. They offer nothing to actually reverse the family breakdown and the bureaucratic-led ghetto that black scholars say undermine black America. So all this talk about like, oh my gosh, I can't believe J.D. Vance speaking ill of childless women, it's empty. If the ruling classes who want to celebrate the bad outcomes they've created, during their years of power, childlessness, loneliness, social breakdown, an environment in the halls of power that is jealous and mean-spirited towards heroic and unsung members of society, wives, mothers, children, and the men who serve them. The point gets down to is there are plenty of men who are basically childless cat ladies too.
Right.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh man, that kind of makes me want to do my Twilight Zone.
He's
All right,
tempted. Will he do it?
I might preempt it. Yeah. So
All right, go for it.
basically, it's on the line of J.D. Vance being weird. And there was I also laugh at this. Someone said in a stunning new leaked video, aka a publicly posted Charlie Kirk show clip. Like it's not like this is some archived footage.
We didn't freak out about it 2 years ago.
They were
Here it
hiding
is
it.
now.
It's like, come on, guys. So J.D. Vance is claiming that childless adults should pay more in taxes, aka a child tax credit. So of course, like the tax that they're using is that he's somehow a communist that wants people to pay for other people's kids. It's clear that J.D. Vance wants to wage war against Americans, retweet so all Americans see this devastating clip. Now, I mean, we could even, Simon, you want to play the clip? I think this is a good setup here.
Welcome back to something I said earlier about we need to reward the things that we think are good and punish the things that we think are bad. So we talk about tax policy. Let's tax the things that are bad and not tax the things that are good. If you're making $100,000, $400,000 a year, and you've got 3 kids, you should pay a different, lower tax rate than if you're making the same amount of money and you don't have any kids. It's that simple.
I totally agree.
I'll go back to something I said earlier.
So what he's describing there is a tax credit, because we clearly have a population level problem where we're not having enough kids to reproduce, and people often cite, monetary reasons why they can't do that. So clearly, as a government that is interested in the future prosperity of the nation, we should be encouraging people to have children.
Absolutely.
For plenty of reasons.
I always like to make this note, like there are some people that no matter how many tax incentives you give, they'll never have kids or more kids. That's definitely true.
Right.
But as Tom, I agree with you, there are families that would take the leap and have an additional kid, like a 3rd or a 4th or a 5th kid, that are not right now, that if we gave them a greater incentive, they would go ahead and do it.
Right. And there's plenty of examples where we tax and then use those taxes to pay for the most ridiculous garbage stuff of all time that no one gets any benefit out of. Like, think about all the pork projects that people just get money for, cheetahs on trampolines or whatever. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. There was one where they put cheetahs on it wasn't trampolines. It was you run on them. I'm blanking on the name right now. It's crazy.
Treadmills.
Cheetahs on treadmill. Cheetahs on treadmill. Go look it up. It exists.
Oh my God.
But imagine using tax funds for things that actually benefit the nation. So in this term, children, I think is the most
What a
valuable
concept.
resource of America. And so you get and under this, Simon, I have the tweet from Barstool Sports. So founder of Barstool Sports, Dave Portnoy, actually, sorry, we got to go 2 down.
He did not like it, did he?
He was not a fan of it. And so you get a sense that there's kind of some cracks in the coalition on the right, no question, because you have guys like Dave Portnoy here who is saying in choice language, this is effing idiotic. You want me to pay more taxes to take care of other people's kids? We sure this dude is a Republican, sounds like a moron. If you can't afford a big family, don't have a ton of kids. Now, Joel Berry went nuclear on this guy.
That is so ignorant. Yeah. Go,
and
Joel.
again, choice language. He's from the Babylon Bee. You're a 47-year-old man-child with no kids who has abusive, fetishist sex with girls barely out of high school. Sorry, but no one thinks our tax policy should incentivize lifestyles like yours.
Yeah.
And boy, did this, I think it has like 5.6 million views. It just completely blew up. And honestly, he gave a pretty lame response of like, well, your boss loves me. Like Seth Dillon texted him one time and I was like, well, great job addressing the argument. But like, seriously, like you're supposed to be this big Twitter warrior or whatever. And so you get this guy, Eudaimonia, making a great point here, which I think I really agree with. People like this are exactly who J.D. Vance has in mind when he talks about not having kids and having a stake in the future. It's not tailored to women, and it's not tailored to good people who are just so happen to not have children. J.D. Vance is talking about men like Dave Portnoy, who loves abortion so he can continue to engage in sterile masturbatory sex with droves of gold diggers as he continues to be a frat boy. J.D. Vance is also talking about men like Lindsey Graham, who worships war and bloodshed and wants to send your sons and daughters, to die for a foreign interest while he risks nothing, certainly not his son and daughter. These are just two examples of types of people who Vance is talking about, and he's absolutely right.
That's gold, dude.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and I think it definitely speaks to the broader question of who should have the most say in the future of a nation, and it absolutely should be people who have an investment. Because, and I was talking. My interview with Dr. Pakaluk's coming out in the next couple of weeks. And she's the one she wrote a book called Hannah's Children about women defying the birth dearth. And she has a beautiful chapter where she interviews women, not just Catholic women, but of all different faiths. And some are more secular than others, but asking them, what do they see as their contribution to society? Many of them have given up the traditional contributions. Like I contribute economically as a cog in the wheel at some big firm and I have a VP, blah, blah, blah. But what they see is they themselves become better people, because once you have that baby, you suddenly see yourself, you have a stake in the past. You're part of a continuity of a civilization, not just you yourself. Like, I want to be me. And like the Kamala Harris, like, let's do politics as self-care for me. Right. And so I can have a better material life right now. But it's, now you have this child who's going to extend into the future. And through that child, you can see your grandchildren and their children and on. And it's, you become a better person for civil society when you have children, and that's just the reality. Now, don't say, and again, like you said, that she's not speaking to women who couldn't have children, who wanted to. She's not speaking to men.
Neither
who
is
just
JD
never
Vance,
found a
by the
wife.
way.
Neither is
Yes.
JD Vance.
Yes.
It's not speaking to the outliers. We're talking about civilizational health here for broad strokes. And this Pew Research poll just came out talking about the reasons why the U.S. economy, it's not just that mothers are having fewer children, it's that fewer women are becoming mothers at all. The childless population is growing shocking rates. And this came out, it was in the Loop this morning. The share of U.S. adults under 50 who say they are unlikely to ever have kids rose 10 percentage points in 5 years. 10, from 37 to 47%. That is a shocking percentage of the U.S. population, which is voluntarily saying, I just don't want to have kids. The reasons they gave, bottom of the list were careers and hobbies, insufficient funds, then concern about the state of the world, climate change.
I'd never
but the
believe
number,
that one.
yeah, but the number one reason women said they don't want to have kids is, I just don't want to. I just don't want to. And that speaks to our civilizational health and where we're at right now, and where all those white Karens we were just talking about are coming from. So they're like owning the childless cat lady, dog lady.
I mean,
thing.
I can say for myself, I was just having this conversation with another guy my age. I'm just like, how in the West, we don't really have kind of a male tradition of becoming a man. So you think back to certain civilizations, they have very specific processes, whether religious or non-religious, of when
Coming
a
of
boy
age
becomes
ceremony.
a man. Yeah,
Right.
something happens, and it doesn't
Some
really
of them are kind of
exist.
gross.
And then also you pair that with kind of the infantilization of society as well, where you can kind of prolong adulthood a really long time now, whereas you couldn't really before. And you even listen to white chicks for Harris. I mean, we're going to talk about white dudes
Talk
for
about
Harris too.
infantile.
Exactly. So you have all these forces basically stopping you from becoming a man. And I was like, okay, when did you feel like in your life you became a man? He's like, I don't really know. Like sometimes I question that. And for me, it was easy. It was when I had a child. As soon as I became a dad, I became a man. I can say that very confidently. Like my perspective completely changed. Everything they say that's true, everything they say about having a child is true. Like it completely changes how you think, changes how you act. I'm a different man now than I was before I had a child. And even in a different way than when I got married. I got married, and of course that's a lift, but it's when I had a child. So when I hear these conversations and I'm on the other side of that equation of like I've had a child, I hear JD Vance say that. I'm like, yes, that's obvious. I feel like it's obviously true to anyone who's had a child. And I know there's people on the other side that aren't there yet, and maybe it's a little bit hard to imagine. It probably was for me too before that. And so I'm thinking, okay, we have a child now. And other conversations I have all the time, I feel like there's plenty of forces right now discouraging you from becoming a man. There goes my camera. I'm talking way too much.
The Karens are out to get you, Tom.
You warned us.
This is an every episode deal. Here we go.
I do have to say though about the masculine thing about it, like, yeah, like it was funny. Like I even had Karens in my neighborhood, whatever. Like I had a knock on my door one time. I believe in trying to instill in my children, like, you need to grow up and be older, like, And so the guy knocks on the door and he goes, hello, sir? I'm like, yeah. He goes, your son. He was like 7 years old. He has a hatchet. I go, uh-huh. He's like, uh-huh. He's like 7 or something. I'm like, did he attack you or something? He goes, no. He looks kind of sharp. I'm like, you got to have it sharp if you want to cut some wood, right? And the guy's like, oh okay. He just kind of scurries off.
But
get out of here, Beta.
If I could finish my point, I think basically, okay, so you have your child, your perspectives change. And now I look at all the different forces that now I have to compete with to try to provide for my family. And of course, Colette and I, we have a business. And one way I think of as well is how like the tax structure is currently incentivized against small business owners, no question. And I think there's collusion between big government and then big business as well, because it forces out competition first off, and then it also makes a much larger pool of talent for businesses to be able to pull from if they're not starting their own businesses. So I look at like everything Colette and I make over a certain income bracket, half of that gone as soon as you know what I mean? We're not even talking about stuff that I have to pay in order to have the business. That's just pure profit gone as soon as we do that. So if you think about that, okay, it's harder to provide for yourself if you want to start your own business. You have to kind of play the game. And then if you play the game, most people almost have to have 2 jobs right now if you have a family or a side hustle of some kind. And then you're talking about, okay, now you have to spend more time outside of the house. More time outside of the house means less time being able to raise your children, especially for women. And I don't see a lot of these things changing.
Like they designed it that way.
Almost on purpose, you know.
Right, and I'm right here, you know, in the throes of it, of course. But I think in order for something to change, it needs to come from a top level government position. So it'd have to come from a JD Vance. It'd have to come from a Trump. One way I think about this, there was a point where Ford was threatening to start a plant in Mexico, start producing cars down there, jobs leave. Trump said to Ford's face, hey, if you do that, I'm going to put a 35% tariff on your cars. You're not going to be able to sell them in America. Yeah. And the person, I'm sure the head of Ford was just looking at him like, you can talk to me that way? Like no politician, especially a Republican, has ever said anything to me like that. They've always said, oh, well, Ford, you know, we'll give you your little tax advantages and, oh, you know, big business is good for everyone kind of thing. And that's just not how Trump operates. It's not an America first attitude. And so I think when it comes to tax structure and businesses, like reforming society in a way that's more friendly to people that want to have kids, that want to raise a family, it has to come from that type of figure to say, hey, it might have been this way. It's not going to be this way anymore. Like here comes the changes. Because if you just let big business run things the same way that you would let a very left-leaning government run things, you're going to end with the same result.
100%.
So that's how I feel about all of it. I want a little bit of rant there, and my camera shut off.
I like it. I'm here for it, Tom.
Sweet. Okay, and I know. Okay, so for those that were upset that they missed the White Chicks for Harris rally, don't worry. Today there is a rally, White Dudes for Harris. Can we get the Monday, July 29th meeting at 8 p.m. Now, we have some people hanging out in the chat. We have people listening to the podcast. Guys, if we could do some intel, if you guys could get in there and let me know how it is, I think I might try to sneak in there. That would be a good Loopcast project.
You
me
do it.
White Dudes in Harris.
Tom.
Guess what? I'm ready to be honest, open, and ready to support our first Black woman president. So I might RSVP, says bring friends, family, and neighbors. Really a star-studded lineup. So if you guys are excited, just as excited as me, we have Pete Buttigieg, David Hoff, NC Governor Roy Cooper, Ben Winkler, and Bradley Whiteford, and other surprise white dude guests. So if anyone would like to join me,
Bradley Whiteford from the West Wing. All right.
So it's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a little bit of a rager. So I think I might try to sneak in there. Let me know if anyone else does.
A lot of man buns going on.
Yeah, not a lot of testosterone in there. They might sniff me out from a mile away. But okay, we do have a couple things on the international front. Erika, I just wanted you to go over. We've had some attacks over the weekend, and I think it matters because our president isn't really at the wheel, it feels like. So what's going on? If you give a brief escalation in the Middle East.
Yeah, so this is definitely a sobering segment here. So over the weekend, we saw the biggest attack on Israel since October 7th, and it came from not Hamas in the south, but Hezbollah in the north. They fired on the Golan Heights using rockets from Iran. They were Iranian-made missiles. That has been confirmed by the Israeli government. One strike that's getting most of the attention, it was on a soccer game, football over there, and it killed 12 children who were playing on the field, and their funeral was just last night. So obviously very emotional time there. Interestingly enough, the Golan Heights have been mostly evacuated for the last 5 months. Americans don't realize this, but there are towns there that are ghost towns right now. Over 100,000 residents have been sent down toward the center of Israel because of these ongoing attacks. There have been 5,000 of them since the October 7th attack. So this has been ongoing. Obviously, Saturday's attacks are escalating this. The Israeli warplanes retaliated. They struck down a few Hezbollah sites, but they are contemplating an attack on Beirut itself in Lebanon. Beirut, obviously, the country of Lebanon is not Hezbollah, but it has been overrun primarily by Hezbollah, which is funded by Iran. So Team Biden which is not Biden right now, obviously. So Harris comes
Hasn't
out.
been for a while.
That's an important point, though.
Yeah,
because
is really
Harris herself
point.
has been saying, I am saying this. He's not saying I'm saying this on behalf of President Biden. She's taking the lead on it. Just crazy.
Right. And the line that's coming across is really enraging a lot of not only Jews and their friends here in the United States, but also the Israeli government itself is pretty much like gloves off at this point with Harris. And they're what I'm terming gasoline on the fire. So Biden's senior advisor, really just the guy in charge, Amos Hochstein, he spoke to Israeli Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant and told him, here's the line, Israel has the right to defend itself about Hezbollah, but must avoid escalation at all costs and minimize civilian casualties. And that's the line that Harris has taken as well. Chuck Schumer got on Face the Nation yesterday and said, they can defend themselves, but they may not escalate. And what you take that to mean is they have to just kind of sit there or only do really targeted strikes at confirmed Hezbollah targets. He also explained why he wouldn't shake hands with Bibi Netanyahu last week during the state visit of Israel, and why so many Democrats did not show up to Netanyahu's address to Congress. He said, well, I just disagree with some of the ways that Israel is responding to October 7th. So again, it's this very frightening both and that the Democrat Party is trying to take in their foreign policy with Israel right now, where we support you, but you mustn't do anything. And that's what's really angering a lot of Democrats against Harris. So that'll be a very interesting thing to watch with this campaign as she tries to play both sides. She's talking about this plan that she has after her meeting with Bibi Netanyahu. It has two phases. The first phase of the Harris plan is to bring about a full ceasefire and withdrawing the entire Israeli military from Gaza. The second phase will be after they withdraw entirely, there's a permanent end to hostilities. And you can imagine the problems with this.
I'm sorry, is this Biden's or hers? Is this hers if she gets elected?
This is her plan right now because Biden is not running things. So the Biden administration also has expressed similar, but she was the one who came out after Netanyahu's visit and explained this plan for Israel.
And Trump visited with Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, Netanyahu actually went down to Mar-a-Lago, and Trump's rhetoric was much different. It was, we support you all the way. Israel needs to destroy Hamas, destroy Hezbollah. We are with you 100% of the way. So obviously very different messaging there.
So, but even what that suggests to me, the fact that he would visit Trump at Mar-a-Lago is that there's no one at the wheel. Why would you have to do that if you could work with the current administration? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. Like it should be the head of state working with the head of state. America does not have a head of state at the moment. It's an empty Oval Office. And that is frightening. That's
because all this other stuff is kind of fun to laugh about, the white chicks for Harris, whatever.
But
it all feels like a giant distraction from the fact that we might be going into a serious regional conflict in the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at three major regional conflicts, right? We're looking at Russia, Ukraine. We're looking at the Middle East with Iran threatening nuclear strikes on Israel, the interior. And we're looking at China gearing up with Taiwan. And it does feel like there's all kinds of shiny things over here. And we can make fun of Harris and we can make fun of, the white chicks. But there are serious things facing our country right now. And yeah, again, foreign policy is not always our gig, but I do think we need to prime the pump a little bit and prepare ourselves because black swan events, we're still looking at a long time before the election, and a lot could happen on the international stage between now and then.
And interesting, on the domestic stage, isn't this a potential, it would keep Kamala Harris from choosing Josh Shapiro as her vice president? Mm-hmm. That's a strong opinion you hold, right, Josh?
Yeah, I think, ultimately, I think Kamala is not going to pick Josh Shapiro because Kamala herself is married to a Jewish man, and if she had a Jewish running mate as well, it would make it extremely difficult for her to win Michigan because there are a lot of Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan, and also actually it would potentially make Minnesota a much bigger swing state because of the Muslim population there too. So if it delivered Pennsylvania, it still may not be enough. But again, this is and again, on foreign policy, we mock these people because they deserve to be mocked, but that doesn't mean that it isn't a serious situation. And I just posted here a link here. Donald Trump calling on the dictator of Venezuela, Maduro, who they just had elections, and it was obvious that the good guy, the challenger, was going to win, so the dictator just stopped the count. And now we're gonna, so Trump is calling on him, like, dude, you lost, quit, give up, resign. So things could get hot in Venezuela. That's the concern, though. Like, once you get communism, you can elect communists, but you can't elect your way out of them because, they're evil.
Make a strong point.
True.
Okay. Twilight Zone. Josh, you're up first.
All right. So, I just want to touch on this a little bit again with the Olympics thing, because the amazing thing was the power went out in Paris for a little bit. And a whole section of town, everything was black, dark, off. Except, now remember, who did they mock during the ceremonies? They mocked Jesus Christ. So the whole neighborhood goes dark, except for the basilica dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Sacrilege. Oh, man.
Almost like,
That's sick.
Yeah. Look at that.
That's awesome. That is my favorite church in Paris. That's amazing to visit. It is so beautiful. I love that, Josh. You just made my heart sing.
So my neighbor was in Paris at the time, my stepmother-in-law.
No way.
And so she's like, the power going out and everything. She's trying to get back home, and I'm like,
there it is.
It's kind of a crazy situation when power goes out, and you're trying to travel, get to airports and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. Mock Jesus Christ in front of a worldwide stage, and so and it was funny because, like, my friend Steve Skojic, who left the Catholic faith, and it's kind of sad. I pray for Steve. I hope he comes back. But he's like, you got Christians saying God will not be mocked. Apparently he can be, and he is. Like, in other words, isn't this just sort of a throwaway line? Like, I don't know, dude. Like, God is he believes in love so much. He's like warning you, like, I will. Lights out, people. Like, do not do this. It is not good. It is not good for you to mock God. So wake up and smell the coffee, people.
Well, and the Sacred Heart is still there, waiting for you. Come on back. It's right there. Beautiful. That is so beautiful. That's great. I don't know.
All right, Erika, what you got
I can't
going?
even follow up on that. That was awesome. All right. Well, Joe Biden, what's left of him, is attempting to solidify his legacy. And so he has put forward his three reforms he wants to execute before he goes out into the sunset. So he has 3 reforms, bold reforms, to restore trust in our democratic institutions. The first will be what he's calling the "no one is above the law" amendment. I don't know if this is something he wants to play around with, but he's going to go for it. The "no one is above the law" amendment will state that the Constitution does not confer any immunity from federal criminal. Basically, it's a pot shot at the Supreme Court decision that Donald Trump, in this one case that we've covered, is immune from prosecution by Jack Smith in a very narrow sense. So he's saying no one is above the law. So that's his first one. Second one, he's going to impose term limits for Supreme Court justices. And he crafts the term limits in such a way that's very convenient, in such a way that the 2 justices who would have to be removed because they've exceeded their term limits are none other than Clarence Thomas and Chief Justice Roberts. He would retire them into senior status, which would move the court from a 6-3 conservative majority to a 5-4 progressive majority. So it's just a little too convenient to believe.
Hey, wait a minute. Where was this idea in 1998 when we had Sandra Day O'Connor on the court?
Man. Or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean,
yeah, right.
It applies both ways.
Suddenly they like term limits. Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, it's great. And then, of course, the third will be a binding code of conduct for the Supreme Court. So the justices that do remain will have to behave, apparently, even though they already have a code of conduct and they already adhere to it and they already disclose their spending. So there you go. This is Biden's swan song. off into the sunset with term limits. The irony that one of the oldest or the oldest sitting president, his farewell will be to impose term limits on the Supreme Court. It's too good to pass up. I had to point it out. There you go, guys.
Okay, I found a backup.
Okay.
So I sent it to the private chat, Simon. This one got the Catholic world going. That's why I pulled it up. So basically, Catholic Answers, they put out an article here, which didn't make anyone upset. So it's tank tops, shorts, sports jerseys, and flip flops aren't appropriate for mass. Period. Period.
Oh man.
So as you can imagine,
Period.
some people weren't too thrilled about that.
The modesty wars.
The modesty wars are back on. And
Good job, Catholic
some
Answers.
of my favorite, I want to go through some of my favorite quote tweets because it reminds me of Josh, how whenever abortion comes up and you want to have a debate about abortion, it becomes like 5 different things. So let me find. Sorry, this is a backup, so I didn't have it completely prepared. But basically, a summary of what people are mad about was that conservative Catholics hate poor people. Was the
Oh my gosh.
somehow what came out of it. I don't really know how came out of it. Is it crazy to say that like people should just dress appropriately for mass?
I mean, the big argument here is that people should dress up for mass. We should give more reverence to the mass and consider it a holy enterprise rather than just sitting around and sharing our feelings. And that's ultimately what angers the left so much on this, the Catholic left. Like, it's like, are there any honest Catholic liberals left? Because, like, in other words, like, what you think a girl should just, come in with a tank top and show half of her body or whatever, or some dude coming in with flip flops and shorts and looking like he's totally unkept? It's not that you actually believe that; it's that you're so frustrated that we would talk about the need to make this current Novus Ordo Mass a little bit more reverent. They get so mad at that. Mm-hmm. They get so mad. It drives so much of what they do. I swear, the baby boomer liberal Catholics are just whiny little kids to me sometimes. It just drives me crazy. It explains their absolute revulsion with the Latin Mass. I'm not even a Latin Mass guy, okay? Again, I say that all the time. But it's like, why are they get so mad in the face? And because the younger people, why go to the Latin Mass? Because it's more reverent, and it just, the lefty Catholics go bananas. And it's like, look, and they'll say, look, the 50s, the Latin Mass wasn't always super reverent. And like, that's not
Fine.
untrue.
Okay.
I get it.
Right.
But like, let's make it better.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And it just gets...
The one line, Erica, real quick, was you don't get to be the church of here comes everyone and the church performing social values of, quote, Sunday best. Seeking authentic worship in the context of our lives means sometimes we are grumpy slobs or total messes who need to let God find us like that.
Who said that?
Oh my gosh.
Someone on
Like,
Twitter.
what are you talking about? That's not the conversation at all.
Like not even like a little bit. Like,
It's not even a little bit the conversation. But like, yeah, like what we talk to our kids about when it comes to dressing for mass. And, there are going to be days when in your life, and they should be very few, where circumstances are such that you just get yourself to mass. And, it won't be your best day. Maybe you're dressed in jeans or something. But the default should be, and the standard you hold yourself to should be, you are going to receive the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. You're going to the wedding feast of heaven, foretaste of the beatific vision. Shouldn't you treat it as different from going to a family reunion or going to a restaurant, or something like that, and ask yourself if you're doing that? And what is wrong with challenging ourselves and fellow Catholics? And the thing that always comes back is, well, if we're looking at what other people are wearing, we're judging them, and we shouldn't be judging them and all that. And it's, yeah, you shouldn't be like, oh, they're going to hell because they showed up in jeans. Like, people, you assume the best, and that people
That's
are
the problem with the judge
doing the
condemn
best they
thing
can.
that's been intermixed.
Yeah, I'm not condemning, but I am going to point to that and tell my kids, we don't dress like that at mass. And here's why. Like, exactly.
Yeah, but isn't that judgment? That's maybe my frustration with all this. Like, we all make judgments, micro judgments every second of every day.
Yeah.
And yet somehow some of them are good and some of them are bad. And Christians like to hold us. I wrote down the quote, Saul Alinsky, make the enemy live up to to its own book of rules. Like people that don't actually care about Christianity, don't actually love Jesus, are saying, well, Jesus said, don't judge. Who am I to judge? Jesus said that. I'm like, well, you're an atheist who hates me. So
you don't
why
even
should
believe
I?
in Jesus.
So yeah, I think why not?
Well,
Maybe what bothers, on Josh's point, I think what bothers liberal Catholics is to think that there are actual commands placed upon you from proper authority. And to follow that feels not liberating or wrong or something like that.
Also, Tom, think about it this way. If you went to one of these liberal Catholics, like, well, why can't I wear tank tops or flip-flops or shorts? God loves me who I am, and you just want to stop and say, okay, hold on. I got 2 tickets to this fundraiser next weekend. You'll have a chance to meet Barack Obama. So just make sure you go in that same tacky, crappy outfit you have right now. Of course they wouldn't. They would dress up. They're like, oh my gosh, I get to meet my hero and savior, Barack Obama. I got to dress up. It's like, actually, at the Mass we have Jesus, and he's even, I know it's kind of crazy, even more of a big deal than Barack Obama. So maybe you should shut up,
Right. It's the turn it around, because it's all like, well, God loves me just the way I am, and he sees me for who I am. And you're like, but have you stopped to consider who God is, right? And we want to use everything in our power to do something beautiful for God. And for some people, that means, a TJ Maxx dress. Some people, it means like, I don't know, Gucci, or I don't even, what do they even make dresses? I don't know. But it doesn't, again, the Mass is very much God's action in our lives, but we want to come to it with everything we are for him. And it just,
I had a cool moment too. Like I was shooting a wedding in St. Stanislaus in Milwaukee. Shout out to anyone at St. Stan's. But of course, just like they're Institute of Christ the King. So super historic, gorgeous cathedral in Milwaukee. And after the Mass, when people get married, then they do a bunch of pictures in the church. And oftentimes the people will just kind of talk in the church space because they're taking pictures. So they're just talking to people. And that's pretty normal. Like most churches I go to, that happens. And the priest got up and actually made an announcement to everyone after, like, hey guys, like, you're going to go to a party. You'll have plenty of time to talk. Like, you're in God's house right now. Treat it as such. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like, I thought about that and I'm like, I wonder if that ruffled some people's feathers. But at the same time, maybe that made people stop and think about where they are. And it is true. Like, the more that you think about where you are, that doesn't make sense. Why am I kind of chit-chatting loudly in the same place that Jesus Christ is, that we were all just kneeling 10 minutes before? And I'm like, but the fact that was brought up and it almost to me was surprising. Like, maybe I'm in the wrong here. Maybe I should be thinking a little bit more about where I'm at. And I think that's just like the kind of the antithesis of the other side, right? Like, there's the two sides of this. There's ones that are thinking a little bit about like, maybe I should think outside of myself. And then there's other people that are like, all I can think about are myself here. And I feel like the dress thing, this is where it comes down with the dress wars. It's like, should I just think outside of myself and try to present the best possible self as I go to Mass, or am I thinking more about myself, my comfort, what I'd like to do, my rules, how this looks to other people instead of God? So that's kind of where it came down on this whole debate. I think it's ridiculous and stupid. Just wear something nice, guys. Wear the nicest thing you have. It doesn't have to be unbelievable. You can dress for cheap. I promise. There's plenty of thrift stores out there. It just shows, though, that sexual revolution arguments exist inside our own church. I mean, people no doubt bring everything to it.
Yep. Yeah.
And I have to get this in. Sports jerseys or like sports related stuff.
I hate that the worst.
It's the worst.
Yes.
The worst. Stop.
I criticize that 10 times more than any woman dressing in it.
100%. Like, guys, like, not the place.
I always give them the biggest crusty ever.
You showed them, Josh.
Yeah.
Especially because it's usually Packer jerseys. I want to throw them out the window.
Yeah. No gosh. Chiefs jerseys unless it's Bucker, I guess. No, not there either.
No, not even Bucker.
But this has been a fun episode. Thank you guys for joining. A Loop fashion advice spot from Tom. I'm happy to, man. I'll give you guys some, put you on game.
They want to hear it. The people want it.
Maybe that's my next move. I become like a lifestyle influencer. I could just make like cringe videos on Instagram, even cringier than I already do. But yeah, thank you guys for joining today. Fun show. If you want, like the episode, it helps us out a ton. Subscribe to the channel. Join the 10,000 people now. Subscribe to the LOOPCast channel. How cool is that? Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave us a review. Email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. Man, I'm struggling through this one today.
Yeah, you're all right there.
I'm like having Sorry, I'm having like a little
We need
bit
to
of
pray for
attack.
Tom.
I know. Pray for my camera. Pray for me. I don't know what's going on there. But thank you guys for joining today. Pray for us. The biggest thing is always. Thank you to the champions who support us. Consider joining them. So St. Thomas More, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and St. Fidelis, pray for us. And we will see you guys on the next episode. Peace.